Good morning, everyone. For Telesur, I'm Cody Weddle in Caracas, Venezuela. We once again begin with the latest into the investigation of 43 missing students in the Guerrero state of Mexico. Tensions continue to rise in Mexico as protesters clashed with riot police Tuesday over the abduction and apparent massacre of 43 trainee teachers. Brandishing metal rods and sticks, masked protesters attacked a police vehicle. Riot police threw rocks at protesters as they tried to maintain law and order following days of violent protests in Guerrero. At least 18 people were injured during the clashes. Protesters torched the local offices of the national ruling PRI party. Now, according to the government, gang members have confessed to killing and burning the students. Independent Argentine forensic experts have reported that the remains found in 3 mass graves do not belong to any of the missing students. Following the announcement, parents and relatives of the victims met with government officials. The Ministry of the Interior promises to double efforts to search for the Ayotzinapa students. Remains recently found in a rubbish dump and a nearby river in Guerrero state will be sent to the University of Innsbruck in Austria to be analyzed by forensic experts. On Wednesday, Chinese President Xi Jinping held talks with his U.S. counterpart Barack Obama. The two emphasized their commitment to building a new type of bilateral relations. The two leaders discussed bilateral relations in the area of visas, trade, climate, and military cooperation. Obama and Xi announced new targets to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and a decision to move forward on trade talks to reduce tariffs of high-tech goods. They also announced a deal to extend the length of visas granted to U.S. and Chinese citizens. The United Nations Refugee Agency reports that almost 1 million Iraqi and Syrian refugees could be left without winter aid due to a funding shortfall. The UN estimates that about 13.6 million people have been displaced by conflicts in both countries. Many of them have abandoned their homes without anything and headed toward camps where they have no access to food or proper shelter.
Are very concerned by an over $58 million funding shortfall that could leave as many as 1 million people without proper help. This is partly due to this sharp increase of internal displacement that we have witnessed in Iraq.
And moving on, Polish police in Warsaw used water cannons on Tuesday to disperse several hundred far right-wing protesters. It came during Poland's independence celebrations that turned violent, with nearly 250 arrested and over 40 injured. Authorities report that those arrested were apparently far-right nationalists. Hundreds of protesters clashed with police. Local reports suggest around 20 protesters and 23 police were injured. Traditionally, the day commemorates Poland's independence at the end of World War I. To the United States now, lava flow from the Kilauea volcano on Hawaii's Big Island continues to advance slowly. It has already destroyed a home in the eastern village of Paoa and a paved road within the community. No one was injured as residents were evacuated in August. There is nothing the residents or authorities can do about the 2,000-degree Fahrenheit river of lava. It has been inching toward their town since June 27th at a rate of close to 20 yards per hour. The Kilauea volcano has been active since 1983. The U.S.-led airstrikes in Syria have killed 865 people, including at least 50 civilians since the campaign was launched in late September. That's according to the British-based Syrian Observatory for Human Rights, which released its report Wednesday morning. The NGO also says the majority of the deaths, about 750, were Islamic State fighters. It added that the actual figure could be much higher. The report reveals that 68 members of the al-Qaeda-affiliated al-Nusra Front were also killed in the attacks. We go to Uruguay now, where a new poll reveals left-wing presidential candidate Tabaré Vázquez leading his rival Luis Lacalle with 42% of the vote. Now, Vázquez garnered 15 percentage points more than Lacalle, who the poll shows to have 37% support. The two will go head-to-head in a November 30th runoff election. The survey also reveals that the number of undecided voters has dropped to 5%. 6% of voters say they will just cast a blank ballot. Brazilian Culture Minister Marta Suplicy on Tuesday presented a resignation letter to President Dilma Rousseff. She also urged Rousseff to revitalize the country's economy. In her resignation letter, Suplicy thanked the president for the honor of serving in the cabinet. Suplicy is a former mayor of Sao Paulo and a senior figure in the ruling Workers' Party. She will now return to the Senate to finish the final 4 years of her term. The Cultural Ministry's Executive Secretary, Ana Cristina Wanceler, will take over the position temporarily. A commission of the Colombian Senate has taken the first step toward the legalization of marijuana for medical and therapeutic purposes. By a majority vote, the commission voted in favor of the initiative. Various political parties have offered their support for the measure. Now, if approved, the bill would permit marijuana consumption by people suffering from terminal illnesses or chronic painful conditions, including cancer and AIDS. According to the latest figures from the UN Office on Drugs and Crime, marijuana is the most widely consumed illegal drug in Colombia. To space now. The space probe Rosetta on Wednesday made its historic rendezvous with a comet. It ends a 10-year, 4 billion mile chase through the solar system at speeds of about 40,000 miles per hour. It marks the very first time that a spacecraft has ever gone into orbit around a comet. Dust and ice on the comet could hold insights into how the planets of the solar system formed and how life on Earth began billions of years ago. The team will now attempt to launch a robot lab onto the comet, one of the most complex tasks of the mission. The separation of the lander will begin in the following hours, and touchdown is scheduled 7 hours later. We have plenty more on those stories and plenty others at our website, telesurtv.net/English. For Telesur English, I'm Cody Weddle. Hope you have a great Wednesday.